I'm Andrew Forbes. I'm a product marketer here at Zendesk. And with me is Varney from Spartan Race, who is the Director of Global Customer Engagement. We are going to take you through the importance of data and putting our data to use to create better customer experiences. And together we're going to walk through some tips for how you can get the most out of your customer data. And to start, for those of you who are unfamiliar, I wanted Aja to just provide some background on Spartan Race and your role there, as well as your team.
So I'm Aja. My title is Global Customer Engagement. What that means is I am the voice of the customer to all of our business partners, to our internal teams, and I try and advocate for the customer, whatever their problems or needs may be. Spartan Race, for those of you who don't know, is an obstacle course racing event, which means people pay us to send them up a mountain through the mud and have them timed and ranked, and we give them a medal at the end, and it's a transformative life experience for the most part. Our slogan is, you'll know at the finish line, because usually people don't know what they're getting into, and then they cross the finish line and it's a victory moment for them.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about your team, how you're structured, and just sort of your thoughts on customer experience?
Yeah, we have only been around about just under 10 years. It seems like forever sometimes, but as a result, our team has kind of grown in fits and starts and organically and kind of all kinds of different ways. So my team right now is in two major halves. I have one half here in the US that is fully remote. So we never see each other except on video conference or Slack or those other telecommuting tools. And then the other half of my team is actually based in our secondary office in Manila, Philippines, which allows us to have 24-hour customer service coverage. So no matter what time of day that you have a question for us about your race or what shoes you should wear, we're there.
That's exciting. I see you support customers in over 25 different languages. I'm excited to hear that perspective as we talk through the importance of data here. So before we get into all of the Explore tips, we just want to talk a little bit about the importance of putting our data to use. And we wanted to start with a really fun fact here from IDC. So by 2025, IDC predicts that global data volumes are going to grow to 175 zettabytes, which a zettabyte is just this, I can't even comprehend it. So we wanted to try to put it into perspective, and this example, we'll see how it goes. But if you were to load data onto a CD-ROM, so let's go back 10 years and say we're still putting them into our CD-ROM players. But if we were to load all of this data onto CD-ROMs, it would stack from the ground to the moon and back 22 times.
22 times?
22 times.
Wow.
It's a crazy amount of data, and customer service interactions are producing no shortage of data. I think you might have seen this slide in Mikkel's keynote this morning, but just last year there were over 20 billion updates to Zendesk tickets. I think your ticket volumes have to be increasing significantly as well.
It's crazy. Right now, it's every customer service director's nightmare over at Spartan Race. We have had a 30 to 40% increase across all our channels just from last year. So I don't know about you guys, but I don't know how to predict 40% out typically. We all don't predict like that. So we're definitely, staffing challenges come with all the data, and we're trying to keep up 40% increases.
That's a crazy amount. And so with all of this data, with all of this information about our customer interactions, it's more important than ever to put our data to use to fuel CX improvement. And in part, it's because our customers have higher expectations. So 54% of consumers have higher expectations than just 1 year ago. And 71% of consumers expect personalized experiences, or they find impersonal experiences extremely frustrating. And so we need to start using our data to just look into all the ways that we can improve how agents interact with our customers, how we can improve our workflows, and just generally serve our customers better. And I'm sure you're thinking, yes, like duh. Like, we have all of this data, it's super important for us to put it to use, and 87% of CX executives agree. In a recent Harvard Business Review study, we found that 87% of them say that it's essential to have data to study CX and improve outcomes. I mean, could you imagine trying to make a decision without having data?
You know, I think it's easy sometimes if you're a really small team, you can kind of like wing it. But then when you start to get to the larger teams, you're maybe multi-countries, lots of languages, all kinds of different customers, I think it's really critical that you have the data behind the decision you're making, not just for your own edification, but when you go to that board and you're trying to ask, your finance team for extra budget money, you have to have the data and the numbers to back it up.
Yeah, you definitely do. And so with such a high percentage of people thinking and knowing that it's important to have data to improve customer experiences, well, why isn't everyone doing it? And so we took a look into it, and we wanted to understand why folks weren't putting their data to use and getting the full potential out of the data that they've captured from all these customer service interactions. And really, at the end of the day, the truth of the matter is that most data tools just haven't kept up with what business leaders or CX leaders need. And what you're seeing here is one of the most popular data tools on the market. And so if you don't know SQL, if you don't know ETL, if you don't know what those acronyms mean, then you're locked out of your organization's data. And this creates all sorts of problems for organizations. One, when you have really complex data tools to use as an organization, you build all sorts of process around it. And what ends up happening is that all sorts of folks from all of your organization are submitting requests. And so your request gets deprioritized, 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 and ultimately, you don't end up having the data that you need to make business decisions. And you don't have the data that you need to sit at the executive table. And I think, a lot of folks say, well, I can't sit at the executive table. That's bad, but it's more important than ever. You guys are customer experience leaders. You don't just sit there and solve customer requests every day. You are the voice of your customer. You represent the thoughts and the opinions about about your products and services and how they feel about your business. And so without having data and without having a seat at the executive table, you really can't bring that into your business decisions. I think you touched on that a little right before.
I think it's difficult. I know probably I'm not alone. Before we found Zendesk, we were doing the Google Doc, Excel spreadsheet, Jenga, trying to put in all the data once a week and have somebody look at it. And, we all know that's going to fall off the boat at some point. You just don't have time to do that, or something else comes up and you missed a week on the spreadsheet, now what? And I think, as you're talking about, having more access to more easily accessible data makes our lives so much easier.
It definitely does. And we wanted to help make it easy for organizations to access their data. And so we set out to solve this problem, and we built this product. We packaged up all the learnings from our customers, what we've learned out in the market, and we launched this product called Zendesk Explore in November of last year. Explore is an analytics product that is built for customer experience leaders to measure and improve the entire customer experience. With Explore, you get a ton of pre-built dashboards right out of the box to help you understand every facet of your customer experience and how you're serving your customers over each channel. And then you can customize Explore however you'd like. So with a simple drag and drop interface, you can build out your own charts, you can build out your own dashboards that you can then share and deliver with your team. And I know your team has started to use Explore a little bit. I would love to hear some of your early thoughts.
So I will admit, we have not gone deep down the rabbit hole of customizing it, but right out of the box, we had some really easy wins. One of the big things that we found just by going through one of the out-of-the-box dashboards was that we had an article of ours that was linked 10 times more than the next article in our queue. And we were like, why are the agents linking that article so much more? We were able to see what agents, who was linking that article, to dig deeper if we needed to, but more importantly, why was that article getting linked so much? And from that, we were able to sort of take that information, brainstorm around it, talk to our agents, and also figure out that our customers needed more education up front in their customer journey with us, rather than always having to seek it out from us and have our agents link the article over and over. So for us, once we found that data through a stock dashboard, we were able to take that to our marketing team, say, hey, we need to get this content more upfront in our emails to the customer. We need to display it more prominently on our website. We've had a decrease in our agents having to provide that information, as well as a really easier customer journey because they're informed right up front.
That's great. That's great insight. And it's great that you were able to take that data and improve the broader customer experience, not just how your team interacts with customers, and influence change throughout the organization. And so Explorer's been in the market for about 6 months now. We have a lot of folks that have started to adopt Explore. We've met with a lot of customers to start to learn what these high-performing CX teams are doing differently with analytics. And we want to share some of the tips that we've picked up along the way with everybody here. And Aja can provide some perspective from how you guys do it at Spartan Race. And so it really comes down to 3 things. The first is that high-performing CX teams, they keep a close eye on their team performance across all their channels. Next, they're not just using analytics to improve their workflows and improve how customers interact over the various channels that they use. They're using analytics to learn more about their customers. And finally, they're being more strategic with metrics. They're driving broader business change and not just thinking about what we can do in the confines of our support organization. So we are going to go through some of these tips and talk through them. The first one is about keeping a close eye on team performance across all of your channels. And I think a lot of people do this. A lot of people measure how their agents are interacting with customers, but more important than ever, you need to set goals for your team. We see that a lot of businesses out there are saying, you know what, here's how our agents are performing, but they don't have anything to benchmark it against. And so when you're measuring and when you're analyzing team performance, one of the best things to do is set KPI targets for your team. And whatever your North Star metric is, whether that's CSAT or first response time or how you're performing against your SLAs, you can set those and then you can measure how performance is changing over time, what drives that performance change across your team, and ultimately you can use what you've learned to identify all sorts of coaching opportunities for your agents to improve the service that your organization provides. I would love to hear, we have a great quote here on screen, how your team is using data to look into agent performance and improve agent performance.
I think one of the things that we do the most, CSAT is our North Star goal. No matter what else we do, we want our customer satisfaction high. One of the big things that I am a big advocate of is sharing with your team. Let them know how they're doing. What is that benchmark? For us, it's 90% or better, hard line. And they all know that. We talk about it frequently. If we have a bad week, we have a bad week, and we all know it, and we figure out why together as a team. I think really getting your team invested in the data that you're tracking and giving them access to it helps you as a team unite around the same North Star goal that you're looking for.
And how do you do that? Like when you're thinking about disseminating some of the findings in your data to your team, is that shared during one-on-ones or a weekly team meeting? I think it's helpful to just learn a little bit about how you get information out to folks so they can understand how they're performing.
I think it depends on your team. Because I have a fully remote team, we do a weekly team meeting all together where we go over all of the CSATs and all of the first reply times for all of the markets that we're currently serving, and we identify sort of pain points or problem areas. But on a more personal level, like looking at the data, we also track CSAT by agent and by channel to that extent. So we can identify like, hey, Andrew's really good in the chat channel, but he's not so good on Facebook messages. So what's he doing in chat that we could bring over to Facebook messages? Or what's he doing in chat that we can leverage to train another agent to be just as good in chat?
That's great. And it's great to take this data to improve how agents are performing regardless of the channel that they're serving customers over. The next tip that we wanted to share with everybody is that you can use analytics to learn more about your customers as well as their expectations. As human beings, we aren't static. Our expectations change all the time. They evolve depending on the channel that we're using. They just evolve, I think, probably as we age, as they might change a little bit, as Adrian touched on this morning, and generational differences with the channels that people prefer. But it's important to use your data to not just think about team performance, not just think about your workflows, but use your data to learn more about your customers and what they expect from your business. You have this dashboard here on screen where we're not looking at the number of tickets. We're not looking at our response times, our resolution times. We're looking at things like where are our customers from? When do they reach out? Who are our customers? Where do they have issues? This sort of information and insights can really help you improve the customer experience. What you can do is you can use all of this data to learn how your customers expect to engage with your business, and you can work on those workflows. You can then work on those ways that your agents interact with customers, and it'll improve the entire customer experience. I would love to hear a little bit about your thoughts here. I know that you had shared a story before about how there are some differences between your customers in, say, France versus the United States and some of their expectations and what you've learned from them.
Yeah, Spartan has probably not a unique challenge to this group, but we serve markets in 40 different countries. So that's a lot of different languages, a lot of different cultural norms. and a lot of different customers. Our customer demographic is not particularly tight. It's pretty varied. We've got 16-year-olds all the way up to, I watched an 83-year-old guy finish his first race the other day. You know, it's a wide customer demographic, so we rely on our data to help teach us about what they need from us. So for us, when we look at the US market versus the Chinese market or the French market or the German market, they all have very different tolerances for us as far as first reply time. That's been a big marker for us. For instance, in the US, we can't get away with anything. You guys all want it now, right now. You want to answer to your email within the hour. You want to answer to your Facebook message, you know, in less than half an hour. You want immediacy. On the other hand, our UK team, they can have a 4-hour response time and not affect customer satisfaction. Our Australian team, similarly, they can take a longer time answering tickets, but there's no impact to customer satisfaction. So that tells us that customers, you know, if we can go above and beyond, great, but there's a base tolerance there that we've learned about that we can adjust our staffing around, budget, you know, staffing projections for and things like that, just based on some easy dashboard metrics of customer satisfaction, first reply time, and what country it's coming from.
I think something that you touched on when we spoke about this was that there's oftentimes a lot of anecdotal signals, say from your agents, that customers have expectations. I would love for you to just talk a little bit about the process that you talked me through, how you take the learnings from the agents and use that as a real jumping off point into your analysis.
Yeah, I think data, for us at least, has to go two-way. And I think most everybody in this room probably is in that sort of middleman situation in a lot of ways. You have, you know, the people designing the process, and then you have the agents who are in the trenches. For me, I like to rely on my team a lot to kind of flag the issues that we need to then look at with data. If we try and just look at the data, there's so much data. There's so much data. If you guys look at a dashboard, sometimes you're just like, sea of numbers, right? So I rely on my agents a lot to kind of help me say, what is the priority thing I need to look at? So if we come up in a weekly team meeting and the team says, hey, we seem to be getting a large number of questions from our French company about this particular issue. Well, maybe I need to dig deeper into that data and see what's going on there. See if it really is an issue, or maybe just seemed like a lot of tickets that week, because we all have those weeks. But you know, for us, I think using your agents as a resource to tell you, kind of help steer the direction for some of the data analysis that you're doing can make it a little bit more manageable and a little bit more bite-sized.
Oh, I agree. It's great. I mean, taking their feedback and using that as a starting point for your own analysis is great. It gives you those signals for what you should be looking into and where you can drive change and improvement. All right. The next tip that we want to talk with everyone about is around being more strategic with your metrics. And so we see a lot of organizations are analyzing things like operational metrics. You know, they're looking at first response times, they're looking at ticket volumes, they're looking at resolution times. But there's an opportunity with your analytics to get much more strategic with your metrics and really bubble up all of those sorts of metrics into cost of service metrics. And so what you can do is you can then change the conversation. You know, when you go to somebody on a different team, let's say you go to marketing, let's say you go to sales, and you say, hey, our ticket volumes increased by 200 tickets last month. And they don't have the rest of the context around the normal amount of tickets that you solve. And so they might say, fantastic, like, great. But the minute that you can put a dollar value behind it, the minute you can say, hey, you know, this issue that's popped up, there's 200 tickets submitted about it, but more importantly, it's costing our team $20,000 a month to work on these sorts of tickets, that carries a lot more weight. And that's the sort of strategic metrics that you can surface, and you can have much more strategic conversations with the organization, and you have much better odds of changing the conversation and getting folks to drive broader CX change. I think the other example that I want to give is that organizations that are really strong, high-performing CX teams are thinking outside of the customer service box. And so your great example with the article, you thought beyond customer service. You said, okay, this article is getting linked so often, but I need to talk to my web team and figure out how we can improve the process just to make it easier for customers to get this information. And that's what a lot of high-performing CX teams are doing. They're identifying areas where customers might have trouble in their product or with their service, and they're using that information not just to say, we need to roll out new macros, we need a couple more agents. They're turning it into an opportunity. And they're saying, look, this is a great opportunity for us to roll out new trainings, new services, new ways to educate our customers on our products or our services and how to use them. And finally, it's important to measure the impact that customer experience has on the bottom line of your organization. Right? Like with Zendesk, as you're in the sort of agent workspace, you can capture all sorts of information about the context of a customer's request. And so with these custom fields, you could identify if it's a sales request. And you can look at all those sales requests that people have, and you can start to change the conversation and say, we're not just sitting here working to solve tickets. We're aiding customers with purchasing our service and purchasing our product. And it's really impactful for the business to see that. And I would love to hear just a little bit more perspective from you on how you can be more strategic and drive broader CX change.
I think you never know what's in your data until you spend an afternoon sitting and looking at it. And recently I did that to try and solve a problem that we had been having with our customers. We're an event company, and weather is a big impactor of our events. So sometimes we think it's going to be 70 and sunny. Turns out it's 34 degrees and sleeting. And that impacts our on-site operations, and we need to message things out to the customers in a very timely fashion. We were messaging it on the channels we thought people wanted to see it. Hey, you're going to go look at Twitter, right, or Facebook, or the places we thought they were looking. Turns out on the days that we had weather issues, we were seeing huge spikes in our views on our knowledge base articles. We didn't think anyone was looking at our FAQs on the day that they're having weather issues. We thought they were all on the Facebook page or the Twitter feed. Turns out they weren't. So what we tried, just recently actually, we made sort of a rolling FAQ with time-stamped updates so people could follow the progression of our weather cancellations or closures or whatever we needed to get to them. And as a result, we had a massive amount of hits on that one article, which told me people were reading it, following it, refreshing it. And we had communicated really clearly to our customers what was happening. We had the smoothest cancellation, and for any of you who have like events businesses, a smooth cancellation nearly never happens. And it was a blessing. We had a Monday morning meeting, and everyone had a little bit of a party on that one.
Well, hopefully it was rescheduled. Hopefully.
It was
okay,
rescheduled.
Found another time. You can't miss out on a Spartan Race. All right, so those are the 3 tips that we wanted to share with everybody today around using data to improve customer experiences. And just as a recap here, because I think we covered a lot of information, we just wanted to touch on these 3 points again. The first is just keeping an eye on team performance across channels. Understand how your agents interact with customers, set goals, set targets for your team, something that everybody can work towards and something that everybody can achieve. And then measure your team's performance over time, identify where folks are lagging behind, and use that to coach your agents and improve the way that they interact with customers. Next is about learning more about your customers, not just digging into the workflows, not just digging into your agent performance, but looking into who your customers are and how those customers interact with your business and how they expect to be served. Using that data to go back and improve the way your agents interact, improve your workflows, et cetera. And then the last one is around being more strategic with your metrics. And so thinking beyond operational metrics and starting to think about cost of service, starting to think about the tickets that are coming in as opportunities for your business, and also just thinking more broadly about the customer experience and how you can use data to drive CX change throughout the organization and really put your customers at the center of everything that you do. Are there any last tips or anecdotes you want to share for the group?
I think the biggest thing I always try and take away is don't forget you have a team. Like, you are not alone in your data analysis and you're figuring out the customer and what's going on. Like, you may be the captain of the ship. You have a lot of other people. I know, like, I've got 60 people on my team all over the world talking to all different kinds of customers. They know that customer probably better than I do. Like, I can look at the numbers all day, but you need the context from your team. You need their input to drive a better customer experience. Because I bet if anybody goes and asks their team, what's the #1 problem we should solve? I bet your team will all come to the same conclusion. They will tell you the one big pain point that you need to fix. And that gives you a direction to start using your metrics, using the data that you have, analyze it, find a solution. You can drive a better customer experience if you listen to your team's interactions and their experiences with the customer.
I think it's a great point. I mean, customer experience and customer service is a team sport. And so taking the feedback and taking the input from your team as that jumping off point to look into where you can drive CX change and drive change for your organization to just improve the way that customers interact with your brand is extremely important. And to wrap up here, we wanted to give everybody a little bit of analytics behind the analytics. And I think you saw this slide this morning during Adrian's keynote, but we did just want to reiterate it. And so what we did is we took a look at these high-performing CX organizations, and we benchmarked them against the general population of our customers. And by the way, if you haven't read our benchmark report, the State of Customer Experience 2019, it's fantastic. You can download it online. It's great. You should read it. But what we did is that we looked into these customers that are high-performing CX teams and how they're using data. And what we found is that they're seeing 66% lower wait times and 44% faster resolution times, which means when you are digging into your data, when you're learning more about your customers, learning more about how your agents interact with customers, you can drive all sorts of change. You can update your workflows, you can update the channels that you use to serve your customers, and you can get answers to them more efficiently as a business. And I think there's a wonderful quote here, Aja, from you on this screen, just talking about how you look into your SLAs and you look into CSAT across channels, understand where you're falling short to drive some automation for your customers.
Definitely. I think one of the big things that we identified as well was that we were getting overloaded in chat. Chat can be a really demanding medium, and if you don't necessarily have all the staff you need in that moment, people don't wait and they're not happy about it. So we've actually implemented AnswerBot for Web Widget to help serve up some of the great content that we have in our knowledge base, help get those questions answered, help people self-serve. And we deflected 20% of our usual incoming chats by helping them figure out how to self-serve with the help of AnswerBot and some great help center content.
Wonderful. That's great. And that wraps up our presentation today. That is everything we had. We wanted to say thank you so much first to Aja for joining us and coming and sharing a little bit about her experience running customer experience at Spartan Race. We also want to thank all of you for joining our presentation today. If you want to learn more about our Explore product and our analytics product generally, visit us in the demo booth. We're going to be there chatting a little bit more about it. But thank you all very much.